Find something. Find a thing that you genuinely enjoy, because getting good at things you genuinely enjoy is extremely beneficial for young people, because it lets you know that, like, everybody thinks they're a loser. Every young person thinks they're a loser. At least a young person in the situation I was at. Like, I didn't know I wasn't a loser until I started winning, until I started doing martial arts. Martial arts taught me that, like, I could get better at stuff, that I wasn't really a loser. I just was someone who was, like, in a fucked up situation. But you could channel all that energy that you have as a young person into something and get better at it. And then all of a sudden people admired me. I was like, this is crazy. So I went from being someone who was incredibly insecure and basically a failure to someone who was really successful at this one thing that was very dangerous.
I fell in love with an essay by Strangest Loop, and it is a list of things that are not doing the thing. So here is a list of things that are not doing the thing. Preparing to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Writing a banger tweet about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on other people who have done the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on the obstacles in the way of you doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Fantasizing about all of the adoration you'll receive once you do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how other people did the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading this essay isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing.
What if? A lot of times I'll be in a 200 mile run or something like that, and I'm all jacked up. Body's broken, mind's broken, spirit's broken. I start to say, what if I can pull this off? When I first walked into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office, he looked at me and said, there's only been 35 African Americans in 70 years make it through. You know what I said to myself? What if I can be the 36th? It's the what if I can pull off a fucking miracle. What if I can become someone that no one thinks I can be?
Job offers will come to you. Money will come to you if you have this kind of inner strength, this kind of inner power that I think is the ideal for young men today in the world. It's very confusing right now because everything is so fluid, and we're all supposed to think that there's no such thing as masculinity anymore, that it's toxic. But real masculinity, that real kind of strength that I'm talking about, is not toxic at all. It is not out there to hurt people. It's not out there to dominate, to be aggressive, to push people around. It's all about an inner strength, an inner confidence that you radiate outward. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I advocate making that your ideal and making that the kind of the radar that guides you through these very difficult times.
One of my direct subordinates, one of my guys that worked for me, he would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on. And he'd say, boss, we got this and that and the other thing. And I'd look at him and I'd say, good.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
Yeah. I don't care how good you are in anything. You don't have discipline, you ain't nobody.
Right.
You're nothing without discipline. Because you give up under the slightest struggle without discipline.
100%.
I mean, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it.
Doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. That is a great quote.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, you could be successful in anything.
You know, you normally are.
Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Think about every poor decision you've made in your life.
Gosh.
There was more emotion that was involved in it than there was mind. Every single one of them. Think about it.
Really helps.
Your feelings keep you in bed. Your mind tells you, get up.
It's easy to get up.
Hell yeah.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do. I'm done. I ain't going. I ain't gonna keep going.
Yeah,
I don't feel like going to work. I'm done.
Yeah, man.
It's easy. It's very easy. But what's hard is going, yo, yesterday I got nothing from working as hard as I could. Nothing happened from that. I'm gonna do the same thing again today, but I'm gonna try to go harder. That's the hardest thing in the world. To get up every day and give 100% and be in the same position that you were each day, but mentally know that you're trying and trying and trying. That's a real grind.
It's been very fun talking to you, especially talking to young men about this. It's like, well, and that's the other thing too, is I think the world is full of darkness, let's say. And we could say each of us have a little bit of light. And if we release that light, if we let it shine properly, Christ, it's too cliche to go on with in some sense, but the world is a lesser place if you do not reveal from within yourself what you have to reveal. And the fact that the world is a lesser place actually turns out not to be trivial. Like if you aren't everything you could be, more people will die, more people will suffer, more evil will be unconstrained, more tyranny will reign, more chaos will remain chaotic and dangerous, all of that.
Do you mean this by this in the sense of like the old proverb of the wings of a butterfly fluttering become a hurricane?
It's something similar to that, but it can even be more local. It's like your family is more messed up than it could be if you were less messed up than you are.
Right.
So if you just got your act together, like 10% more, your family would be 1% better.
Right.
It's like, well, do it.
And that would ripple off into the people that they interact with.
Yes, and it ripples. That's the other thing that's so cool is that, like, people think, well, there's 7 billion of us, and each of us is just this separate dust mote, like floating in the cosmos, and what the hell difference does it make what you do anyways? It's like, that is not how we're connected. It's like, you're the center of a network, and you know way more people than this, but let's say typically, you're going to know 1,000 people in your life, well enough to have an impact on them, okay? And each of those 1,000 people is going to know 1,000 people. So you're 1 step from 1 million, and 2 steps from 1 billion. And we are networked, technically. That's how human interactions work. And so when you do something that you shouldn't do, it's worse than you think. And when you do something that you should do, it's better than you think. And so you think, well, this is why I've been telling people, well, clean up your room. It's like, well, your room is actually networked too. It's not that easy to clean up your room, to set it. So you want your room to be set up so that when you walk in there, it tells you to be better than you generally are. It's organized, it's got direction, everything's in its place. You try to do that in a chaotic household. You know, I've watched people do this because I had students do these sorts of things as assignments. I'd say, look, pick a small moral goal, clean up your room, and just write down what happens as a consequence. So maybe these are students in a chaotic household. The whole place is a bloody mess. No one's taking any responsibility for anything. And so they decide they're going to start to clean up their room. And then the people in the household notice. Well, the first thing they do is get pissed off. It's like, who do you think you are? Like, you think you're better than us? Like, why do you think this is worthwhile? Who died and made you God? All of that. So just by trying to organize this little part of their life, they immediately run into the people whose actions they're casting in a dim light by trying to improve themselves to some degree. They might have to have like a thorough war in their household to be allowed to do something as simple as keep the room orderly. They'll find out very rapidly that A, that's way more difficult than it sounds, and B, that the consequences of it are far more far-reaching than people think. So that's quite fun. No, because maybe part of it is that like everything around you is full of potential. Everything. Maybe more potential than you could ever possibly utilize. And so maybe all you have is this little rat hole of a room in some rundown place in the world. It's like, fix it up. There's more there than you think. See what happens if you fix it up. And you'll fix yourself up simultaneously because you have to get disciplined in order to fix up the room. And then you have a fixed up room and you'll be a more fixed up person. It's like, you think that nothing will happen as a consequence of that? It's like all hell will break loose as a consequence of that.
Trust me, you have a mindset right now, just like I have a mindset. It's how we view life. I know people with a negative mindset, which basically they view everything in a negative way. I know people with a positive mindset, which means they view everything in a positive way. People with an abundance mindset, a scarcity mindset. It's a way of thinking. question is, how did we get there? How did we get that mindset? Through practice and habits. People that have a negative mindset have continually thought negatively. People that have a positive mindset have continually thought positively. You see, the things I do today determines the habits I have tomorrow, which determines the mindset I have tomorrow. So go back to what you do daily and ask yourself, what kind of a mindset have I developed today?
Okay, y'all ready for a lecture? Talk about the importance of nothing. You get up every day, you're entitled to nothing. Nobody owes you nothing. You could have talent, but if you don't have discipline and you don't execute, you don't focus, what do you get? Nothing. If you're complacent and not paying attention to detail, what does that get you? Nothing. So, nothing is acceptable but your best. So, we need to be, everything is determined by what you do deep down to be your best. So that you can build on positive performance, so that, and that's the only thing, there should be nothing else.
And it's also very much worth thinking about with regards to setting up your life in general. It's like, if you concentrate solely on your career, you can get a long way in your career. And I would say that that's a strategy that a minority of men preferentially do. That's all they do. They work like 70, 80 hours a week. They go flat out on their career. They're staking everything on the small probability of exceptional status in a narrow domain. But it's hard on them. They don't have a life. It's very difficult for them to have a family. They don't know how to take any leisure activity. Like, they get very one-dimensional. Now, it may be that that unidimensionality is the price you have to pay to be exceptional at one thing, right? Because if you're going to be something like a genius-level mathematician, and you want to do that for, or a scientist, say, it's like you're in your lab all the time, you're working 70 hours a week or 80 hours a week, you're smart, you're dedicated, you're unidimensional, and that's how you get to beat all the other people who are doing that. It's the only way. But the problem is you don't get a life. Now, if you love being a scientist and you have that kind of focus of mind, well, first of all, you're a rare person, and second, you're going to pay for it. But fine, more power to you. But it's a risky business to do that. You sacrifice a lot for it. You know, and I would say most often, if you're speaking about having a healthy life, that isn't what you do. You spread yourself out more. So, you know, you have a family, you have some things that you do outside of work that are meaningful to you and useful. You have a network of friends. Well, those 3 things alone, or 4 things alone, are plenty to keep you well oriented. And then if one of those things collapses, you know, everything doesn't go. Now, the price you pay for that is the more you strive to optimize that balance, the less likely you are to be fantastically successful at any single one of them. But you might have a very, you know, if you consider your life as a whole, that might be a winning strategy. It's like, I want one thing in my life to be 150%, or I want 5 things in my life to be 80%. Well, there's a lot more richness in a life where you have 5 things operating at 80%, but you're not operating in at any of them at 150%. So, and I really believe this.
You know, I really don't have regrets. I am a person that says, you know, as soon as you look back in your history and you come up with something that you feel like you want to change, something else has to change. You know, so.
What about your biggest disappointment?
Once again, that's the same analogy. You know, disappointment to me, to win, you got to lose. To be successful, you got to have something that's not successful. To be happy, you got to have disappointment. So I think all of those things have evolved and happened to make me who I am and understand the benefits and the privileges I have for being who I am. You know, and not to wear it on my sleeve. Be very humble about it. That's one thing my parents taught me very well is, don't wear your reputation, don't wear your accolades, don't wear your personality on your sleeve. Let it happen, let it be you. It is who you are. Don't hide from it, but don't wear it, rub it in people's face.
You talk about performance without a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
So, like, for instance, let's say you have no races. Let's say you have no classes, no nothing. There's no purpose in your life. People need to have purpose to get up. They need purpose to perform. You need to get to a point in your life where there's nothing on the docket. There's no 5K, there's no I'm gonna get into school to be this or that and still perform to the highest level. Because what people don't get is one day that thing's gonna come up. And if you're not constantly performing without purpose, you're not gonna be ready when the time comes. It's this magical thing, purpose, that we're all looking for. But what's funny about it all is that we need these things to perform. But we don't take a second to realize the purpose is always there. The purpose never leaves us because the very purpose is you. You are always the purpose. There may be another purpose, like being a SEAL or going to college or whatever, but the main purpose in life is you. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to do something, you don't care enough about yourself. And that's what you need to really research is, man, why am I not doing this for myself? Because that is the number one purpose in life, is to better oneself. So that's the only purpose I fucking need. So the reason I get up every day, even though there's no race or there's no school or there's nothing in front of me, is because I have pride in myself.
The key to being successful is planting. You've got to plant. Now, when you plant seeds, young people, you can't expect a harvest in 30 days. The harvest don't come in 30 days. You got to plant your seed, and sometimes the harvest don't come for years. Everything is not instant. So here's what I do. I get a roll, and I drop seeds in the ground. Then I go back and I cover them up with dirt. Because the dirt, you need the dirt. Then, once I cover it up, I dig another row and I plant some more seeds. I got about 10 rows planted. I look back at the first row and it's starting to sprout. Some stuff starting to come out the ground. I don't go back to that first row and just start eating because it ain't really bearing no fruit right now. You can't eat the stalks and the leaves. You gotta wait till it bears fruit. In the meantime, you got to keep planting. Now, you're gonna look up in about 5 years, you're gonna look back at something you planted 5 years ago, gonna have a lot of fruit on it. Then you can go back and start partaking of that fruit. But the reason you gotta keep planting is because sometimes you're gonna get rained out. Sometimes it's gonna be a drought. Sometimes, man, the pesticides / haters is gonna do what they do to your planted crops. Now, you got to mentally be prepared for that. But the planting process can never stop. If I can tell anybody anything, keep planting seeds and never stop planting because you have no idea when God gonna drop all the necessary rain and you look up and everything you need is right there.
The hardest part of all of it is being vulnerable enough to admit the abuse, admit the past. Most of us don't want other people to know that, and that's
right.
The hardest part, to open up and be that vulnerable.
Right.
When did that start to bubble to the surface for you and you start to see vulnerability as a strength?
Well, where it started making me, I had to stop giving a fuck about people. That was the biggest thing. I had to stop caring what people thought about me. I realized that everybody's fucked up. That's the one thing I realized. I walked around and I put these people on a fucking pedestal. Everybody was better than me. So I can't tell you anything about me because you're gonna judge me and I'm gonna feel even worse than what I am. What I realized, once I calmed my mind down and sat back and looked at how jacked up this world is, once you realize that you are not alone, everybody that's talking to you about how jacked up you are, only thing they've done better than you is they've hidden their fucked up world better than you have. That's all they've done. So once I realized that, if you want to sit back, like for instance, there's all these things that are on TV, and we have all these news people judging people who fuck up in life. Yeah, they made big mistakes. But that person who is judging you on TV, I guarantee you that news person is saying, I'm glad that my shit didn't come out, but I'm gonna judge the hell out of you. I know that about people. So if you want to sit back and judge how jacked up I was and how messed up my life was, Merry Christmas, go for it, have a good time. But I'm smiling at you right now, knowing you have a secret that you're not willing to share. It gives you a lot of power when you're able to go on a podcast this big and say, hey, tell me, I'll tell you anything you want to know, because I no longer care. And that is a lot of power in that, to be able to put your life on a billboard for the whole world to see and say, judge it, man. Judge it. Like just me talking about it makes me feel good. And that's another thing about it. When you are willing to talk about how jacked up you are, the strength, that big rock that you carry, it just starts to come off you. It just starts to come off. That's why I do it so often. I'm like, hey man, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of not telling you shit. I'm tired of lying about how good I'm not.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks.
As humans, I think naturally we go into situations sometimes and we're selfish. And so we want to see, how can this benefit me? How can I go into the situation and it best benefits me and everybody that I'm connected? Like, how can I get the edge in this situation? Instead of stepping back and understanding that when you're selfish, it's a dangerous thing, because when you're selfish and you go into situations at a certain point in life, we're always going to come up against something that's a lot tougher than us. And if we're always selfish, 9 out of 10 times, if the only thing we think about is just ourselves, when we hit something that's a lot tougher than us, we don't have a driving force to do what we do. And so it's easy for us to surrender, step back and say, man, forget it. I'll throw it away. It's just like I'm married, right? And so I'm young, I'm 6 years in. And so I went to an old couple one time and they were married some crazy years, 60 years, something like that. And I said, right, crazy, insane. But I'm saying, how did you make it last that long? And they said, the reason we made it last this long is because we come from an era when something is broken, we don't throw it away, we fix it. And so as people, the way I approach situations, how can when something is broken, I don't throw it away and I don't let the circumstance or the situation define my life, but I try to figure out how can I fix it, and fixing it may not be my arm working, but fixing it may be me using it every day to be a blessing in somebody else's life.
How do you develop consistency and more discipline in your life? And often with these kind of ideas and questions, I find the focus wrong, and I like to look at it differently from a different angle. So the human brain operates by pleasure and pain. What is pleasurable, we're attracted to, and what is painful, we naturally recoil from. And if things become too painful, we never do. And if things become pleasurable, we get addicted to them, often with bad consequences. All right? So if the idea of discipline, of consistently doing an action, is only associated with pain, with tedium, being by yourself in a room, doing one thing over and over and over again, you're never going to get over the mountain, because it's associated with too much pain, and the brain naturally shrinks to anything that's painful. Okay? So So there has to be pleasure in it. Discipline has to have an element of pleasure. Consistently doing your work has to have rewards. Reward is the key word here, right? So if you never feel direct, pleasurable sensation from what discipline is giving you, then it's never going to work. Well, what are the rewards? When you were young, when you were a child, if you learned a sport, or you learned a musical instrument, or you learned chess, you knew that in the beginning, day by day, it was boring as shit, you hated it, it wasn't fun. But if you stuck with it, after 3 months, 6 months, wow, I can play this tune. Yeah, I can make a 3-point shot. Yeah, I can win a chess game here. All right? There's a reward. And then you push through and go further and further and further and further. Okay? If you never had that experience in your childhood, then it's pretty rough. I think most of us have had that in some kind of endeavor. If you've never experienced a reward from discipline, it's going to be very difficult for you. But you have to know that after 3 months to 6 months, sitting in your office and writing every single day over and over and over again, you're trying to write a book or a novel or whatever. It's boring as hell. But man, I'm going to reach that moment in 3 months and 4 months. There's going to be a reward, and I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to get addicted. I'm going to get hooked to that. And you get hooked to those rewards to the point where other kinds of immediate pleasures don't have the same effect on you. And you want this again and again and again in your life. The highs that come from actually reaching your goals. So you have to think in the moment of this where you're trying to discipline yourself of what will be the reward of the visualize it and feel it. I'm going to have this skill at the end. I'm going to have this business that I've started. I'm going to have this sense of pride. I'm going to have this sense that I got where I wanted to. And literally visualize it and imagine it and feel it in your body and know that that's where I'm going to have that reward at some point. And if it's too much drudgery and tedium, you're never going to get past that point. So that's sort of my main lesson.
In life, we have these 5 buckets, right? The first bucket is our knowledge, which is what we know. When we apply what we know, it becomes a skill, right? And these first 2 buckets, your knowledge and your skills, are the only buckets in your life that no professional earthquake can ever unfill. They're also the buckets that overflow to fill these last 3 buckets, which is your network, your resources, and your reputation. When you have knowledge and skills, you'll undoubtedly build a network that will lead to resources, and finally reputation. Life can take away these last 3 buckets, but if you're a young person, the key takeaway here is when you're selecting that job, like I was at 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, don't select for reputation, a nice jobs title. Don't even select for resources, getting paid more. Focus on jobs that will fill these first 2 buckets, which is knowledge and skills.
Need faith, because you're not smarter than Satan, brother. I know you may think you ain't smarter than Satan. You need faith. You need faith, brother. He's good. He knows your weakness. He knows you before you was existing. He knew your mother before you knew your father. He knows you before God knew your existence. They knew you together. They were there when they made you together. He know you. You can't have no secrets from him. You can't talk slick to him. You see all your fights and stuff? All your knockouts is spectacular. Know what that means? All this good stuff happening to you, know what that means? That you're favored by God. When you're favored by God, you're also favored by the devil. So you just gotta be strong and stay on the right side. Whose side you gonna go on? He's gonna give you power too. He's gonna get in your head too, but it's whose side you gonna stay with. You stay with who brought you here. You go home with the guy that brought you to the dance. You're powerful. He wants you. He's coming at you. He's gonna tell you ill. He's gonna tell you how beautiful you are, and he's gonna tell you, I made you beautiful. So you do what I say. I'm not gonna let you get all this fame, and I'm not gonna enjoy this pleasure either. You know, they get in your head, and they make you believe you deserve it. Why don't you deserve it? Didn't Mike Tyson tell you no should be a foreign language? Oh, they talk to you like they're your best friend. You have to be disciplined. Discipline is doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. Say, maybe I'm gonna go home tonight. Just remember, God loves you, so does He. He's after you too. It's a war. You gotta really believe that. If you don't believe it, you'll find out. You know, that's what it comes. You always gotta let people, you're the prize. You're the champ. You're the best fighter in God's creation. You gotta believe that you're the best fighter since the beginning of the dawns. You have to believe it. You have to believe it, because if you don't believe it, you won't be that person. And you're on that road to try to be that person. So even though it's embarrassing, why are you on this road? This road is to be the greatest fighter in the history of the world. Fear is my friend. I love fear. Fear allows me to reach my highest potential. The fear of failing is an illusion. Fear is an illusion, but we have to have desire. We have to have something that pushes us. Fear pushes us. You don't understand that living prepares us for death. Our life, it prepares us for death. Even if we die young, it prepares us. When you don't have that feeling no more, when you don't get that fear no more, it's over. Then it tests you. It tests you. It see how much you can take before you say, let's just be finished with this. You know what I mean? It wants to show you something. It wants to see how much you can take, how much you can handle of life. You say you love life, you want to live life. I'm going to show you life. I know the art of fight. I know the art of war. That's all I ever studied. That's why I'm so feared. That's why they feared me when I was in the ring. Because I was an annihilator. That's all I was born for. And now those days are gone. It's empty. I'm nothing. I'm working on being the art of humbleness. Can you be with me? That's the reason why I'm crying, because I'm not that person no more. And I miss them. Because sometimes I feel like a bitch. Because I don't want that person to come out, because if he comes out, hell is coming with him.
What I used to have to reign. I have to reign tyrannical. I used to have to be the beast. I have to be the savage. You know what I mean? Just to put in place the erudites and the bourgeoisies and the people of this society that believe that I'm trash and I'm scum. I'll be trash and I'll be scum, but I'll be angelic trash and scum. And then no one can stop me, and they know they can't stop me. I'm the best ever. There's no fighter that endured what I endured and reigned supreme. And this fight is very important to me. In order to be a true champion, true fighter, you have to commit yourself. And in committing yourself, you stand a chance of me killing you, putting you out. Then I'll illustrate my reign with bloodshed and pain. Then everybody will fear me. Got trembling bones. The man to be a fighter has to be hungry and to have nothing. He'll never know what it's like to be without. He has a different situation. A man who's not hungry and has plenty will die in there. Because the people that are in there have nothing. And their job is to die in there because they have nothing, so it doesn't matter what happens to them. They have nothing to lose. How could a man that has so much to lose win against a man that has nothing to lose?